Have you ever been shopping online, loved something that you saw, put it in a shopping cart, got all the way through the checkout process, and for some reason, the phone rang, or maybe you got distracted, or you had to bring your kids to school or make dinner, and you forgot to complete that checkout process? Then days go by, you forgot about the piece, and whatever, you're done with it. So this happens all the time. And if you don't have an abandoned cart sequence set up on your website, you are missing the boat and missing a huge opportunity to increase and scale your sales on your own branded website. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of Flourish and Thrive Academy, and help overwhelmed and struggling jewelrypreneurs and creative product business owners become in-demand brands and scale their sales to multiple 6 and 7 figures and beyond using a little something I call the Desire Brand Effect. And today on the show, I have a very special guest. His name is Chris Orzechowski, and he is an expert at e-commerce email marketing, and he's going to share with us his no discount policy on writing epic abandoned cart email sequences that actually get buyers back to your website and improve your conversions like crazy. You are absolutely going to love this episode. Before we dive into today's episode, I'd love to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get more content like this every day. All right, let's dive into today's episode with Chris. I am super excited to have Chris Orzechowski on the show today. Thanks so much for being here, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Tracy.
Well, we just found out in the pre-interview, because when I was introduced to you by one of our students, Mary Geraldine of Garden of the Sun, and she introduced you to talk about this abandoned cart sequence. And then I was looking at your website. I'm like, I think I know that guy. And it turns out that we met at Kevin Rogers' Copy Chief Live, because I went to go check it out. My friend Laura Belgray was singing. She was singing. No, she was dancing.
She might have been singing.
So I was like, God, I know him. So it's so fun that we've actually met in person before a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That was a good event. That was fun.
Yeah, super good. Well, thanks for being here. So you're an email copywriter, and you specifically write for e-commerce brands in a lot of ways. So I want to hear a little bit more about your background and your journey into copywriting and kind of what you do, what your agency does.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, like most people, I kind of found this after college and after working at a different job. I used to be a school teacher. I taught special education, middle school. Before that was elementary school. And it wasn't a bad gig, but it just wasn't really for me. And, I saw these people like using the internet to make money. And I was like, how does that work? I gotta like learn that. I gotta figure that out. So it sent me down the rabbit hole. I discovered copywriting. I started doing that on the side, nights and weekends, eventually built up enough clients to the point where I could leave the teaching job. And I worked with all kinds of clients over, the last 7 years. And in the beginning, it was usually a mix of like, some e-commerce brands, even some brick and mortar, a lot of digital publishers, people sell courses and masterminds and things like that. And I just remember like looking back at all the projects that I did after like halfway through my career. And I look back and I said, man, every time I work with one of these e-commerce companies, everything just seems to work. It just works really, really well. Like I would do these, I've done a number of multi-million-dollar course launches with different people, Jeff Walker, John Assaraf, a lot of different, bigger name dudes, people in the industry, and we'd always be on pins and needles, or at least I would be, you'd write 300 pages worth of copy. And then for 3 weeks, you're like blood pressure's through the roof because you're like, oh, yeah, like, are we going to hit our numbers, or is this thing going to flop? And it's like, it was just after a while, it just became a very stressful way to live month after month. And then, I do these e-com projects and I'd be like, wow, we did that email sequence. So we made 100K. Like that was easy. So eventually I got to that point. I was like, why don't I just hyper focus on these people, the e-com people? And then when I started looking around the industry, I just started noticing like, there was a lot of room for improvement. There's some brands who do it very well, but I just kept seeing like every email was like big flashing picture, discount. And then there were some brands and they were just doing the same sale every week. I'm like, it's been the 8th week in a row of a 40% off sale. It's like your products just cost that much. It's not even not a real so thing. Yeah. So I was like, there's got to be a better way to kind of do the e-com email thing. And a lot of my clients, we've been finding a lot of success with me just writing really great copy. And I was like, maybe this will work for a lot of different brands. And the more and more I tested out, the more and more it just started to work.
So what are the range of types of companies that you've worked with in the e-commerce space?
Yeah. So I worked with a lot of different brands. So a few meal prep and meal delivery companies. Chef was one of my bigger clients. They're no longer in business, but they were a big startup and competing with like Blue Apron and HelloFresh. I worked with Factor 75, which is another meal delivery company. Worked with Filippo Loretti, which I know Matas, one of the co-founders.
Oh, yeah. He's they're a watch company. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And I did must have been back 2016, I think it was. We did a Kickstarter and did 5.2 million in 30 days. And so that was like awesome.
Yeah.
That was one of those, I was like, holy crap, this is so cool.
Wait, can you repeat that? How much did you do in a few days?
It was like $5,170,445, depending on currency conversions at the time. It was around, give or take, a couple 100,000 or 100,000 or so. But yeah, it was a decent sized Kickstarter. I think it was like the 18th biggest of all time at that time. I think a few of it, bumped us down the list. But and then we did another one the year before where we, kind of recycled the campaign, updated, refreshed it, and did like another 4.4. So those were fun gigs. But it was a great company, great products, and a hungry audience, and it was just kind of like a perfect storm kind of thing. But trying to think what other brand. Right now I have a supplement client. We have a client that sells. Whoa, hello. Sells
and sells. It's alliteration and rhyming.
It's all. I promise. It all comes together. They sell a spray for if you smoke marijuana or cigarettes or whatever, and you don't want it to smell like it. They smell a spray that gets rid of it like that and lasts. And then we have another client who sells. They're called carnivore snacks, and they're like not dehydrated, but kind of like dehydrated and baked like ribeyes. So it's like, imagine you took like, a 1 pound ribeye and you put it into a little bag, you fit in your pocket, and you can take it anywhere and eat it. So it's pretty cool. So pretty wide variety of clients.
I'm like, it's not just for those, that's not for the vegans, but
it's definitely not. Yeah. Definitely not for them.
So you've written email copy for like a range of products, from like high-end jewelry and watches to like meat in a bag.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, I know we talked a little bit about how you got into copywriting for e-commerce, but like, is there really like a big difference between writing for the different types of products, and like, what are those differences?
Great question. The biggest differences that I find, like, I think from a strategy perspective, there's not a ton of differences. Maybe here and there, maybe if you're selling like a mattress versus a supplement, a mattress where you'd purchase once a decade versus a supplement, which you got to purchase every 30 days. Like, there's going to be some nuance and strategy there. But the one, like the frame and the lens that I like to look through with all this is that all of your emails really shouldn't necessarily be about your products. It should be about outcomes, right? Yeah. Because what I've seen with the brands that I've worked with, and tell me if you've seen this as well, products change over time, right? Products evolve, products get discontinued, products get put on the shelf. You introduce new products, you come up with an upgraded version, right? So if all of our emails are just about products, like, that's not really why people are buying things, right? Like, why are people buying jewelry? Like, they're buying jewelry to optimize the way they look, to improve their self-confidence, and all of those. There's a number of different outcomes.
One of the things that we talk about is like, jewelry is a desired purchase. It's not something that's needed. And it's a lot of people buy jewelry because of the way it makes it feel. You mentioned confidence, but like, people feel beautiful sometimes when they wear jewelry, or, it reminds them of special moments in time or whatever. So it's pretty sentimental in general.
Exactly. So if your emails are about that rather than the product, because people will say, oh, well, this is a 24 karat gold and a yada, yada, yada. And that's cool. Like, you need to know that stuff, obviously, right? But really, that's not why people are buying it. That's not the emotional reason why people are buying it. So I think with all the brands that I've worked with, the one thing that we always try to do is sell an outcome that people want, and then use the product as a vehicle to help them get to that outcome.
So what were the outcomes you were selling with Matas's watch brand? I'm curious.
So there were a few. So I guess I could demonstrate with an example if you don't mind. So one of the emails we wrote for them was, can your appearance affect your salary? Because
Oh
we
my
knew
gosh, so good.
it was nice. Yeah, you swiped that one. It was this email, and actually we referenced a study from Neil Patel, and we kind of broke one of those sacred rules of email, like don't link to anything other than the main call to action. But we did. We said, hey, check out this article written by Neil Patel. I think he spent like $100,000 on the style, and it helped him make like an extra $600K that year from. I mean, he had all the data point. It was a very well done article, but we said, take a look at this article and, ask yourself this, like, do you think if you worked on your appearance, would it help you get a promotion? Would it help you feel better about yourself? Would it help you hold your chin up higher when you walked into the office every day? Right. And, there's a lot of ways to do that. One of those ways you could do it is by getting a nice watch that you love that expresses who you are. Right. And broadcast the message you want to be sending to the world. So we could have just said, hey, here's a watch. Isn't it cool? Buy it. Here's a discount. Right. And that's what most people do. But we took it one level deeper. Yeah.
I love that. So that's such a great, first of all, that's a brilliant subject line. Like, what was it again? Can your
appearance affect your salary?
Can your appearance affect your salary? Brilliant. I think everyone here who's listening to this podcast should use that in one way, shape, or form if you're selling a luxury or jewelry or even creative product, because I feel like it's something that they're using for themselves. That's massive. But I love that it's all focused on outcomes, and you can even tie data into it, which is super amazing. We've been measuring all that stuff as well. So one of the things about emails for e-commerce, in particular in the jewelry space, is like a lot of times the emails are super image heavy, I guess is the best way to put it. How do you kind of incorporate that balance of products and copy in order to make it work?
Mm-hmm. So, I go back and forth on this a little bit because images, obviously, like they're appealing to people, right? Mm-hmm. And, depending on tests you run and data that you see from certain, I'm not in the camp of like just text or just images, right? Like I think there's kind of a middle ground here. Yeah. But what I think is that the images should support the copy, right? So like the copy is really why people are going to open up the email. And if you're writing your emails in a dynamic way and you're telling stories, that really becomes the prize, right? Like if I just sent you an email and there was just an image with no words in it, you'd be confused, right? So we obviously don't want to take that approach where it's just like, image, flashing button, buy now. Like I've seen clients and I've been into people's Klaviyo accounts where that's what they're doing. They're just sending an image and a shop now button, and there's no context. There's no story. It's like, why am I getting this? And then the sales reflect that, a 34,000 person list, they're making $150 when they send an email like that. So, and that shouldn't happen. That should be $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 when that email goes out, right? But I think what you do is you take people on a journey, right? Like there's so many things you could do with the text and with the copy. You could tell people the stories about what you're working on in your company, new products you're developing, things that happened on the factory floor, right? Things that are happening in your own life. Basically, if you watch what Laura Belgrade does, like those kind of stories, those work for e-com too. I mean, that's what I have clients right now, and that's what we're doing. We're telling stories. We're focusing on the outcomes and the transformation, all those things. Like, I think the pictures help definitely, but I think, it goes back to this, one of my favorite ad men from like the 1950s, 1960s era, who's not as well known as like the David Ogilvy's and those kind of guys, but his name was Howard Gossage, and he was out in San Fran in this little firehouse, and had this little tiny agency. And his quote that like just is like the pillar of one of the big pillars of my beliefs is he said that people don't read ads. They read what interests them. Sometimes it's an ad. So I believe that if your emails just look like ads all the time, and they're just the pictures and they're just the discounts and they're just screaming you buy, people are going to tune that out because it's not interesting and there's no reason. And it's almost like in my inbox, like God forbid I buy something from Brooks Brothers, I get spammed 7 times a day for the next like 10 weeks. And it just, this thing's on sale for 20% off. This thing's on sale for 30% off. This thing's on sale. Like, I don't need to open those emails anymore because I know what's in there. There's nothing dynamic. There's nothing exciting in there waiting for me. I know it's an ad. And if I'm not ready to buy, I'm just not going to open it. So exactly. I think if you just focus on making your ads not look like, your emails not look like ads, you'll really see some great results.
That's awesome. Okay, yeah, because we always talk about this balance, and storytelling is huge for my industry. And in fact, we call it story selling sometimes, because I feel like there's so many different ways that you can weave in stories of your customers, of your brand, of like even your dream clients or whatever it is, into something that's compelling that people want to read. And you can do that in video, and all the aspects of the content that you create can be reflected back into your emails, which I think is really powerful. So what kind of like email sequences, because we're super big on, I know that a lot of people listening to this podcast probably don't have these in place, but we're really big on setting up automated sequences on the back end of a business, including like, I call it an opt-in or a nurture sequence, where they opt into your list for some reason, post-purchase sequence or a win-back campaign, and then also abandoned cart sequences. So do you want to talk a little bit about those and like how you structure them?
Yeah, absolutely. Cart abandonment. What I like to do with these is I like to have a little bit of storytelling within those, because I've seen some from bigger brands. I think one was Bonobos I saw recently, and it was just like a picture of the product and like, forgetting this, picture of the product button, and like that was it. Like, I guess it works. They're a big enough brand, they have good products, right? But like what we do with ours is we kind of tell a little story. So the one we did for one of my clients was like, this is the client that sells the spray for if you smoke marijuana and you don't want it to smell like you do. We kind of took the whole voice, we injected some brand voice in there, and we kind of took this whole thing like, we're smoking weed all day, we're making cool products, and like it's just got this kind of like funny stoner vibe to it. So we basically just said like, hey, we were just getting ready to run out and grab a pizza and then have a little blunt session, but before we did that, I just noticed you left something in your cart. Did you puff too many times before passing? Like, and we kind of like inject some jokes and some humor. And we don't do that with every brand, and that's not going to work for every brand, obviously, but like we try to find what's unique about the brand's voice and inject a little bit of humor and fun into those emails, because it makes people stop and makes people think, and they say, wait a minute, that's funny, or that's cool, or oh my gosh, this brand is so different than anyone else. And it's almost like they kind of want to stick around to see what else you're going to say. So in terms of like a nuts and bolts for like cart abandonment, 3 emails, I like to not go with discounts, especially not for people who are already customers. Maybe test it out where you do a conditional split if it's if someone,
explain what a conditional split is, because a lot of the people listening probably don't understand what that means. So
okay, sorry about that. So
I know what you're talking about, but just in case.
Okay, yeah, I'll unpack that. So a conditional split is basically like you can choose criteria. So in this case, conditional split, in your email software, you can say, hey, if someone is a customer already, send them down this path and they get this set of emails. And then if someone's not a customer and they're just a prospect or just a regular subscriber, no purchase records in your system, then they can get this other sequence. And then the sequences can do different things. So there's a lot of different ways you could set it up. But, you could do something like if they didn't take their welcome discount, you could offer it in the cart abandonment sequence, right? Because you've already committed to giving up that margin there. But I think I always err more for all these sequences. I always err more on the side of let's try to put off giving them a discount.
Good.
And I think the reason why is like, if you went in to buy like, a Louis Vuitton bag or like a Hermes scarf or something, right? Like, and they're like, and by the way, if you order now, in the next 5 minutes, we're going to give you 20% off. You're like, ooh, I kind of don't want that anymore, right? Like it takes away, it makes the brand feel cheap almost a little bit, I think in the right circumstances, yeah. But like, for instance, like Lululemon, like I love their joggers. I'm a big fan of that brand, and like they never put those things on sale, and I like cherish them. Like every time I get a gift card, I'm like, oh, I'm buying some. I don't need the discount because I like the product. It's a good product. It's a good brand. They're not, roping me in with a discount. I don't need that. So I think too many people rush to discount. I think test that without the discount first, see what happens.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things, I can't stand discounting. I made that mistake in my first business when I had a jewelry company. And I used to have these massive sample sales. And so I built a huge direct-to-consumer audience because most of my business was wholesale back then, because this was back in the 90s and early 2000s. And the thing that was interesting is that of the direct-to-consumers is like when I finally got a website up, like most of them would never buy regular price because I had trained them to buy at my sample sales. But if I did put some things on sale on the website, then they would buy it then. And so when you offer discounts, you train people to only buy from you on discount. And do you want to be the like haggling brand that people are buying from? So train them to buy from you regular price, and then give them a reward if you happen to have a sale or an event like once a year or something like that, but don't discount too often. So what do you include in that abandoned cart sequence?
So basically, the general structure is kind of like, I like to set the context with all of these behaviorally triggered automations, because I don't think people are dumb. Like, I think they're smart. And I think they know that you probably got some crazy software that can track what they do, and I think people kind of like, if you send them an email an hour after they put something in their cart, like they know you're kind of like tracking a little bit of behavior. So I always say like, hey, I just checked in and got this notification, saw you left this in your cart. Or if it's a browse abandonment, hey, saw you were checking this out. Just wanted to check in and see if you had any questions about it. Hope this is what you're looking for. If it is, cool. Might as well grab it, right? We only have a limited amount of these in stock, or we make these by hand and they take a long time. So grab it now. Like, there could always be a reason for them to act now.
So you're creating urgency by saying that there's limited quantities, or we make them by hand, or they take time, or we only have a few left, or something like that. So that's the urgency, not the discount.
Yeah. I throw that all under the umbrella of like the reason to act now. And there's a lot of creative ways, beyond even what we just mentioned here. It really depends on your brand and the way you make your products and market them. But there's that's definitely an important part of it. Sometimes I like to pull in the dynamic product image, like, hey, here's the items in your cart. Obviously test it out, right? It kind of depends too on like your overall templates that you're using. Like, if everything is super visual, you probably want that. If everything's more text-based, you might not need it as much. It's something to test out. I think like with most things in marketing, it's testing will give you the answer. But, and then I always encourage people to reach out and ask questions and say, hey, especially like with jewelry or something like that, like, anything you're buying that you're going to wear on your body. What I found, even myself as a consumer, I always notice, like, I wonder if this is going to fit, or I hope this fits, or I hope this looks the way I think it does, right? So you might want to talk to someone, or maybe there's a different product if you're trying to decide between the two, and someone from their team, from support, could help you make that decision so you can get the thing that you want.
So would that be the second email to say like, hey, I noticed that you haven't completed this yet. Do you have any questions about it or something like that?
I like to invite them to respond back in each email.
Okay, cool.
The reason why is because I just, I don't know, like, I just don't think you can guarantee that people are going to read every single email, right? There might be someone who they get all 3 emails, but maybe they only had time, or they only opened up email number 2, right? So I like to have at least a little bit of a line in there, and just say, hey, if you had any questions, or if you had any problems checking out, because that's sometimes too, depending on, you might look at your checkout and be like, oh, this makes total sense. And other people might be going through it and they're not used to, because you're using a different platform than what they're normally used to buying, or they had an issue with a credit card or PayPal or whatever you're using. You never know. There's like a million different reasons why. And half of them you'd never even guess. Like, I'll give you a real quick example. Not that it was a payment issue, but just in terms of a cart abandonment story. We were getting our bathroom upstairs redone in our house here, and they were like jackhammering tiles one day, and I was sitting at the dining room table, and we had this floating shelf back there, and there were these wine glasses, and I'm just checking out, buying something for my wife, and all of a sudden the jackhammering was shaking the walls. I didn't realize one of the glasses fell off the shelf, shattered into a bazillion pieces as I was like mid checkout in my cart. And then I had to spend 25 minutes cleaning up all the glass. I had to get the vacuum out. It was like this whole big process. I had to wash all the glasses by the bar over there. And meanwhile, like, I was literally like entering my credit card number. So without a cart abandonment, like the person who wrote the cart abandonment sequence could have never imagined that sequence of events playing out. Yeah. So that's why you got to follow up. That's why you got to reach out and see if they have questions. That's why you got to, have these things in place, because you never know what's going on in your customer's life.
That is so true. There's been so many times when I've like been shopping Instagram or something, like an ad pops up and I'm trying to type in my details, but I'm realizing that the autofill is not working. And I'm like, I got to go get my credit card. And it's like late at night and I'm like, forget it. I'll just like open it up in the morning, and then something glitches and the whole thing closes, and you just never know why. Like, usually it's because someone is busy and they've walked away, or like they're late to pick their kids up from school or something like that. So yeah, that's interesting.
A lot of people, they think, I don't know, like, I've talked to a lot of business owners and they're like, well, if they didn't buy it, they just didn't want it. I'm like, no. They added it to their cart. Like, they definitely are at least a little bit interested. Like, let's see, sometimes even like adding a risk reversal, right? Like, hey, and by the way, maybe email 2 or 3 in that sequence, say, hey, by the way, just in case you weren't sure about this, we have a 60-day money back discount where you can exchange it or get a complete refund. Try it out. We've
Not a discount, a guarantee. A guarantee.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. A guarantee, right? So like you add that in and that will ratchet up response as well, because it's kind of that risk reversal. So there's a lot of these like little copy levers and little like pieces of like almost like lines of code, essentially, right? That's the way I view copy. It's like code that's going to go into your reader or your customer's brain. It's going to change the way they think about interacting with your brand, right? So you could write these little lines of copy, and just adding one or two of those little lines, a little bit of risk reversal, a little bit of a reason to act now, people are going to jump at those.
I was just doing some research. This will air after the masterclass is over, but I was like researching metrics on like automated sequences and how much more effective they are than just regular email broadcasts. And abandoned carts, they sometimes get like 30 to 40% open rates as opposed to like a regular email broadcast. And your ability to actually recapture that sale, like sometimes people recover up to 30% or even more of abandoned carts by just sending out a sequence. And so I think anyone who's not doing it is actually just leaving money on the table.
It's free money. I mean,
I know, right?
and you don't got you set it up one time. Like, some of these sequences we've written for clients, we wrote them 3 years ago and they're still profiting off that. Like, how long do you plan on running your business for? If it's 5-10 years, like you could write a sequence today that's going to be paying you a decade from now. Like there's not many more forms of leverage like that in your life that you're going to find. It's crazy.
So we talked about kind of the checking in, kind of like, hey, I'm not sure if you realize you left this. Then we talked about risk reversal. What's another idea for like the third email in the abandoned cart?
So in the third email, that's when I like to ratchet up the urgency, right? That's when I really focus on that reason to act now. And like, if you're not going to use a discount, if you don't have low stock, or, you could just use the old, hey, listen, your cart's about to expire. And I think, here's the thing, like, it's not like you're going to write that 1 or 2 sentences and 100% of people are going to jump, right? But like maybe you get 10% or 20% more people who are going to buy now that wouldn't have before if you didn't include that line of copy, right? And what that does, I think we have this like fear of loss, FOMO, right? It's like, oh, well, I kind of wanted that stuff and I took the time to shop. So it's a little bit of a Zygarnik effect. They want to finish what they started, right? It's a little bit of like, I almost have those things in my possession, right? And now I'm going to lose them. Even though they don't have them, they see them on the screen, like, I don't want to lose all that stuff, right? So I think really just focusing on that. And one of the things we tried with one of my clients was we said, listen, here's the thing, like your cart's about to expire. And what that means is that someone else is going to get your stuff, like Brian from Tampa. And Brian's a huge fan of our brand and he's going to buy like all the stuff in your cart. And I know you don't want Brian from Tampa to get your stuff. So like it was kind of funny, and like like I said, not every brand has to be funny like that, but there's always a creative way that you can inject your voice into it. That we're working with a nonprofit right now. They sell coffee and they donate a large part of the proceeds to the nonprofit arm. But what we're doing is basically saying like, hey, not only are you about to get some awesome coffee as soon as you complete your order, you're also going to be helping kids, orphans in Honduras who really need the help, right? So like that's not... that's not a funny thing, right? That's not a funny piece of copy, but it's something that kind of tugs at your heartstrings and it gives you another reason to act now and another reason to buy instead of just not buying.
So this is perfect for anyone who has a philanthropy aspect to their business. Like if you're donating a portion of proceeds to something, or you're doing some sort of, you regularly do some sort of incentive for a charity, this is a great way to kind of weave that in. I love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's all just how you can kind of, I call it demonstration and dimensionalization, right? Like you want to demonstrate how the products, if you could future pace a little bit too, like you're so close to getting this supplement, like you're about to be so jacked as soon as you get this. Like that's what you could do for like, if you were a supplement brand. And the dimensionalization is what we talked about with the nonprofit stuff, right? Like here's how this purchase, here's how you taking this action is going to affect your life and the life of other people. Like they're super powerful little copy nuggets that you could drop right in there.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about list segmentation. You briefly mentioned it earlier where you could test like different subcategories of buyers versus non-buyers. So like, what's your like philosophy around that? And how would you like for someone who's just getting started with this? Because I know a lot of people, they don't understand how powerful list segmentation can be. And it can get complicated if you let it be. So what's your philosophy around that?
Yeah, you're right. It definitely can. And some people get like super deep into the weeds. I think for most people, like there's a few key segments you want to look at. I think the most important segment you want to look at is your buyer segment. So the way I have my list and a lot of my clients' list set up is we set up a few whenever we start working with them, and we say, okay, here's the unconverted people, or just the prospects or subscribers, we'll call them, non-buyers yet. And then we have the customers. And I heard this great line. I wish I came up with it, but it's from Paul Mort. I don't know if you know Paul, but he's a genius. He's a smart dude. And he said, I'm not trying to, okay. Yeah. He said, I'm not trying to build an email list. I'm trying to build a buyer's list. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that is so like that. That's what we're trying to do, right? Yes, we're trying to grow a list. Absolutely. But we're trying to grow the list so we can grow a buyer's list, because we can't help people with our products until they cross that chasm. You can't learn karate if you're standing outside and looking in through the glass on the sidewalk, right? So we look at the buyers, and some of these things are for tracking more so than mailing, right? Like we want to see that buyers number going up every week. Obviously, we want to see the the subscribers list going up as well, because that means our organic list is growing. I also like to look at, what segment of them are engaged versus non-engaged, right? So you have, super actives versus inactives. Those are two easy ones. And the way you do this criteria is basically each list is going to be different, but you could say people who've opened or clicked an email in the last 30 days, those could be like your active prospects. And then that will give you some clues into your overall list health. If you have 10% of your list, only 10% of your list is, opening or clicking in the last 30 days, like you might have some list hygiene issues, right? Like you really need to fix that. I like to look at VIPs. That's one segment, because those are like your whales. And the way we like to do those, it's going to differ client to client, but I usually pick a spending threshold that they have to cross, or a number of purchases threshold. So if someone's bought from you 4 times, or they've spent $600 and they meet either of those criteria, they go into that VIP category. And I like to get around 10%, 9%, 11% of the list. And I like to play with the criteria until I get to about that 10% number. Because those are the people where if you only have, maybe you have a limited, we only have 75 of these items in stock. Those are the people you want to go to. You don't want to open up to everyone. I'd like to open up to them first, because they're the people who are my biggest fans, who are the loyalists, who are telling their friends about us, who are posting on social and tagging us, who are doing all of those things. Like those are the people you want to reward with those super special offers.
I love that. That's so good. So, and then from a list building perspective, like what are your strategies for helping, like advising your clients on building their list? Like we have our own strategies. Like there's a bunch of different ways that you can get them on. But the one thing that people always lean in is like some free shipping or discount option. And I'm like over it. I'm like, so what are some of the other ideas besides that?
Yeah. So yeah, those are the obvious ones. And like, I could see there's definitely pros and cons to that. Like the pros are like, oh, well, you're going to get people who obviously want to buy if they're looking for a coupon, but on the other hand, you're training people to buy with a discount. One of my clients, and this was his idea, not mine, so all the credit goes to him. He sells leather bags, and like they're really, really nice leather bags. They're men's leather bags, like backpacks and luggage and stuff. And what he does is he does a raffle. He raffles off a gift card. So he's not giving a discount to everyone. He's basically giving a credit to one person. I think it's every month or every 2 weeks. And his list is growing like a weed. I mean, every time we talk, it's another, 3, 4, 5,000 people bigger. And it just works great. For obviously, like most things, you got to test. I'm not huge on offering like a digital lead magnet, like a 7 ways to. I think that works better if you're selling information. I mean, I guess it could work, again, it depends on the product, but I tend to find, something that's a little bit more tangible, that's a little bit more geared towards people buying. If it's not a discount or a free shipping, a gift card, something like that, maybe a free product, it depends. But again, it's those are usually the things we look at. These are the first few moves that we make.
Yeah, most of the people that I know who are building their list by building like a VIP, like they call it their VIP insiders, not in the way that you're talking about a VIP list with their top people. That's mostly what people advise, but like the draw is that like they get exclusive access to like insider sales or like special events, etc. But I do, and we've had people test sometimes the lead magnet thing, but it's usually more like a guide on like how to clean jewelry or how to care for a product and how to style it. And that sometimes works, but like you said, it really depends on the brands. In your experience, like with this guy who's doing the raffle, are people just signing up for that list for free stuff, or do those people actually convert to buyers later?
Oh no, they convert to buyers. You're gonna get some freebie seekers, but I think the thing is you're gonna get freebie seekers no matter what you do.
Yeah, it's true.
So we haven't really seen an issue so much with the raffle, and that's kind of what's been working best. And he's had that running for a few years now. He used to do the discount, and he opted for the raffle instead of that because it was working a lot better. Obviously, because that's another list growth strategy people will do too. They'll do the big giveaways, and they'll do, get everyone to cross promote, and they'll do one of those big events where, win products from these 4 or 5 brands.
Yeah.
You get a lot of freebie seekers with through those things, but about the exclusive access and those kind of things, I think if you have the right kind of brand, like, are you familiar with House?
HAUS or
the aperitif, the drink.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we just bought them for the first time, and wow, what a cool brand. I mean, I could talk about them all day. They're awesome. But one thing that I saw, it wasn't a lead magnet necessarily, but one thing that was cool about their membership that's like making me kind of want to test it out is they offer those, pop-up events and cool like insider stuff. So that's one of those things. If you have a brand that's like that, I don't know if I'd call it a lifestyle brand, but kind of, right? Like it's kind of more in that realm where it's not just about the beverage, it's about kind of the lifestyle and like, I don't know. It's just cool. I'm having a tough time putting into words, but if you have something that goes beyond the products that spills into people's lives, if you're cooking, if you sell cooking stuff and you have classes or you have other pieces of content that'll help people use the products, but like there's a lot of different ways where you could kind of use test some of those things out as lead magnets, like you're saying with the Insiders Club. I don't know if it's going to work for every brand, but I think with certain brands, absolutely.
Yeah, I think for people with cult followings or they really like the product, but they're not ready to buy now, it works really well. But the best way to build an email list is actually from buyers. So it's about getting the right traffic and making sure that your website's converting, getting those people on your list, understanding how to segment those people, or figuring out another way. I mean, I love the raffle idea as long as you're getting the right kinds of people on the list, because I think it can really work too.
Yeah.
Chris, this was awesome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, this is a good one.
Tell us a little bit about like what you do like on the side. Like where can people find you? I know you have some courses for email copy and stuff like that in an agency. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so my main site right now is the emailcopywriter.com. I was very fortunate to grab that domain many years ago.
Very
Don't think
lucky.
I would have found that today. Yeah, but I publish a lot of content there. I have a weekly series. It's called Email of the Week, and basically I just take emails from really cool e-commerce brands, and I break them down, and I show you like, hey, here's all the things that are going on in this email, and I kind of break it down so that you could use it for your own business. And it's a lot of work each week, but people really like it, and I have profiled a lot of big brands and just kind of shown you all the secret sauce that goes on, at least from what I could tell, behind their email marketing strategy and the copy strategy and those kind of things. So, and then I give away my book too. If you want to join my list, make it random. I'm coming out with another book soon, but probably about 3 weeks away. And that one's about e-commerce email automation. But I also have an agency. It's called Orzy Media. And basically we just work with e-commerce businesses and help them, blow up their revenue with email. And, we do that a few different ways. We can build automations. Sometimes if people want full management, we can just manage their accounts and they just kind of sit back and sip on some house and we just run all their email and
Nice.
they get to enjoy themselves. And then we also do, coaching. Some people want to, done with you, or they want to learn how to do it themselves. So they don't have to have an agency the rest of their lives, which totally understand. So we do some of those training situations as well.
That's amazing. Chris, thanks so much for being here. And we'll have links to everything in the show notes. And this has been awesome. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate you too.
Thank you so much for watching the show today. I hope you enjoyed that. And I want you to get your abandoned cart sequence up and running right away if you haven't done so yet. If you like this video, make sure that you like it and share it with your friends, because sharing is caring. And if you'd like a little bit more support with your email marketing, if you'd like to get your emails opened, if you'd like to design beautiful emails that get people clicking through, and on the way to your website so that they're buying more on a regular basis, I'd love to invite you to check out our Emails That Sell Done For You bundle. This bundle has everything you need to write, create, and design beautiful emails that get people shopping in your emails every single day. Head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/email bundle to check it out today.